Well, realtors here in the Quad Cities and across the country are bracing for a huge shift in the way they do business. Starting this Saturday, August 17th, new rules will roll out that overhaul the way realtors get paid to help people buy and sell their homes. And joining us this morning to break it all down and what this means for you at home is Justin Landwehr. And he's a real estate agent with Navigate Realtors here in the QCA. Justin, thank you so much for coming in and joining us this morning.
Yep.
Now, obviously, let's go ahead and start where this all started. This started with a $418 million settlement. Tell us about that settlement.
Yep. There was a suit filed against the National Association of Realtors. They settled. That proposed settlement should be finalized, we hope, November 26th. And some new changes roll out for MLS participants, so realtors across the Quad Cities. Promoting more transparency on how realtors get paid and what services they're offering to their clients.
Okay, and it's always great to have transparency with anybody you deal with. Now, tell us about some of these changes and what does that mean for consumers at home?
Sure, the biggest change for consumers is on the buyer side. Essentially, most buyers now will be signing a buyer agency agreement with their realtor. Typically when I list a home, right, I sit down with the client. If I was listing your home today, Dustin, I would sit down with you, we'd sign a listing contract, we'd work together based off that contract. With buyers in the past, we would go show houses without much of a contract in place. Now I'll be sitting down with buyers prior to walking in a home with some sort of contract in place, describing the services that I'll be offering and how I'm compensated.
And then just touch on the commission part a little bit more. Obviously, you said it's more on the buying end of things. Now, how does that kind of affect the sell and buy process for the consumer? Because obviously, everything has to be followed to the detail, and all the I's have to be dotted and all the T's have to be crossed. So how does that really affect the consumer when it comes to the commission thing?
Yep, I've sat through a ton of trainings and meetings across the nation, across the state, Zooms and all that kind of stuff to be prepared for Saturday's changes. Actually in Iowa, we kind of started rolling out those changes in July and then across the nation August 17th. So the biggest change I'd say is just the transparency of how the commission's paid. A lot of times buyers don't know how an agent's paid. Now it'll be laid out in that buyer-broker agreement.
Okay.
Seller can still pay a buyer's agent commission. Sometimes part of that commission might come from the buyer, but the biggest change is just that agreement, showing where that commission is going to come from and how people like me get paid.
Okay. Now, one of the changes I heard of was how consumers won't be able to see certain properties that are being listed without an agent. Now, can you clarify that?
Yep, I would say that's kind of a myth. There's a lot of ways to view a home. A listed home, obviously, like let's say again, Dustin, I had your home listed and someone called me off of my sign in your front yard. I would ask them to sign a buyer's broker agreement with me. If they didn't want that, we would sign non-agency, saying that I'm representing just you, like at an open house. If I had an open house and 10 people came through, I'd be representing you selling your home and not necessarily representing the buyers that are walking in. I would just have to let them know that I'm not representing them.
Okay.
So you don't have to work with an agent necessarily to buy a home. I always think it's great to have representation on both sides of the transaction, but you don't have to as long as you're signing that non-agency knowing that you're not going to be represented.
Now, what services are going to be provided for consumers and how much?
Great question. It's kind of like any service provider. I get my car washed all the time, right? Sometimes I have the tires done and the inside vacuumed and all that sort of thing, so full service car wash. Sometimes I just run it through and want it hosed off, right?
Yeah.
Have the salt taken off or the bugs taken off. And there's all types of realtors across the Quad Cities offering a wide variety of services, from minimal services, just paperwork, to full-on showing homes, giving advice, scheduling inspections, all that sort of thing. So it just depends. I would interview agents if I was a buyer looking to buy a home. I would interview a couple agents and see what types of services they offer and what those charges are going to look like for them.
Okay. And do you feel like this helps or hurts consumers with all these changes?
Great question. Changes are always difficult, right? If there's one thing two things realtors are good at, it's change and paperwork. So we're definitely adding a layer of paperwork here with these changes. I think it is good to be transparent with the consumers and let them know how things are going to go through the transaction. Before, it was kind of unknown how buyer's agents got paid until the closing table. Now we're just being much more upfront with that. Day one, when I meet with a buyer, do a consultation with a buyer and sign that agreement and show my services. I think it'll actually help inform the public overall. I hope that's the intention of it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what are your thoughts on all the changes from the realtor perspective? Do you think this helps the industry or hurts the industry?
There's a lot of talk that this added layer actually makes it a little bit harder for first-time buyers. It was a little more smoother process for them probably years ago. But I think with any change, we'll work out the bugs and continue providing fair, transparent housing market for all of our clients.
All right, Justin, I just want to thank you so much for coming in this morning, adding transparency to all these rules, because going through the buying and selling process is not easy for anyone.
Hopefully realtors make it a lot easier for you. So hopefully we can make it a smooth transaction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.